What up? It's episode of 94 Feet with Coach JT. Do me a favor, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a like, and your comments are definitely welcome as I just continue to grow this platform and upgrade. Try to make some new changes, bring the show to you on an even more consistent basis, add some dope new guests as I keep going to the second season. I'm 25, 50 episodes in. I stopped keeping count, but appreciate everybody for tapping in with me and joining along in this process. Don't forget, though, hit the website, 94feetwithcoachjt.com. We got your merch. We got your updates. We got a full profile on myself and the show and everything, man. Shout out to the homie Courtney, man. Take care of the website for me. If you need somebody to do website design, tap in with Courtney, man. He's one of the best out here. All right, let me get into this intro of my guest today. She's a marriage and family therapist and professional clinical counselor who merges the world of psychology with education in her practice as a MFT PCC. She uses a trauma-informed lens to coach others towards a deeper connection with self and discovering personal purpose. She is also a nationally recognized educational consultant who has a pronounced ability to co-create safe spaces through the facilitation of conversation regarding trauma, restorative mindset, DEISEL, and also believes in mental health as well. She definitely the advocate for mental health. Last but not least, she believes in cultural co-creating safe learning environments through a heightening of awareness of choice. She's also supporting evidence-based practices using an experimental learning modality to provoke meaningful thought, maintain optimal engagement, and support healthy discussions and dialogue. None other than Miss Janecia Roland, the CEO and founder of Restoration Coaching LLC.
Oh, that was a mouthful, huh?
It was all right. Hey, but you see, I try to pace myself, make sure I give you all your flowers and get it done right, and give you accolades too. So how are you doing today? Thanks for tapping in with me.
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm doing great. No, thank you. I know this has been a long time coming.
I know, right? We spoke about it back and forth. Things tried to slow it down, but you've been doing your thing, I see, on different levels and keep going. And I appreciate the as we know, right, the communication back and forth, adjusting our schedules to make this happen.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So definitely before we get to the work that you're doing, though, we got to give the listeners and viewers a little bit of background about yourself and where you're from.
I am originally from Southern California, so I grew up in Pomona. So shout out to P-Town.
So I'm gonna hold you right there real quick. I'm gonna give you a pass because you've been in SAC for a little bit now, but we Northern Cal up here. But you're gonna no, I'm just messing with you.
Well, that's the thing. So I grew up in Southern California, but when I transitioned to Northern California, I feel like this is like my home. Yeah. So it's like my home away from my home away from home.
That's
and
right.
It's smaller than what I thought. It's
really.
Yeah, it's like small. And people know people, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yes. So it happened with you and your sister.
Yep.
So that was a dope experience. Yeah, so
that's so funny. Like, shout out to my other half, man. Usually it's you Coach JT, sis. I'm like, she's like, boy, I'm tired of hearing that. But now I was like, oh, you Dr. Stockdale's brother? Yes, that's me. But she definitely made that be known. But yeah, that's the one, man. She's definitely dope in her work too and pushing the education forward. Okay, from SoCal though. So real quick about the adjustment. What made the adjustment, if I may ask? Because usually people leave here and go down to LA.
Yes.
But coming up from the LA to SAC, they're like, it's not as popular as a move for that. What brought that about for you, if I may ask?
So originally the reason that I came was because of family, so extended family. But then once I got here, I started to make connections, and then I started working at an educational consultancy. Okay. And then I started to finish my master's program. And so when I was done with my master's program, I actually went back to SoCal. Okay. And I was flying all over California, up and down, back and forth. And I was like, nah, I got to make this move. So I just picked us up and then moved us to Northern California because I had relationships already kind of rooted here when it comes to business. And ever since I started my own business, I just kind of capitalized on those relationships, and business is doing good. It's doing well.
Good. I tell a lot of the boys I coach and just people that's probably one of the most important things you could have in your arsenal is a relationship with certain people.
Absolutely.
Communication is key, as we both do in the communication field, talking to people, shaking hands, saying hello, just some casual conversations can go a long way.
Absolutely.
You talked about getting the master. Let's talk about the education piece a little bit before we get into the work. What was the deciding factor of you shifting or getting into this type of work that you do? Anybody particular or any situation you've gone through where you can this is what I want to do? Because what I see now, it's not the hope to. A lot of the students are young, kids in education right now. aren't always like, I want to be this when I get older, or they don't
Mm-hmm.
have, especially now work like this. It's not appealing to the
You're
youth.
right.
But for you, what was that kind of factor? Or what kind of played a part in that?
So that's a great question. I grew up in church, so I'm a PK kid. My dad was a pastor before he passed away. He's been gone for like 15 years now, but
Okay,
he
sorry to hear that.
he left like an imprint. And my mother, she's like a God-fearing woman, so I still have that example. But growing up in church, I would see a lot of people get married and then turn around and get divorced very quickly. And so as a child, looking at my parents, and to this day, I think if my dad was alive, they would be married for like 32 years or 35 years. So I saw the epitome of a God-fearing, beautiful marriage. But then I saw all these relationships and marriages in church, in the religious community, just falling apart. And so as a kid, I wondered, like, okay, what's happening in behind closed doors, right? I was going to write a book called Behind Closed Doors. And so when I started to experience my own personal experience in regards to being married, I'm no longer married, but when I was married, I started to realize, like, this is wild, right? This is wild. What's going on? And me in general, I love to try to understand why people think the way that they do, right? I love to people watch. I'll go to the park, sit in the car. I probably look like I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I'll sit in the park and I'll just be sitting there just observing human behavior. And so I started to think to myself, okay, in my undergrad, I was like, okay, this kind of sucks. I don't really like these classes. But then when I got into the master's program, it was like, wait, this is what God was preparing me for. This is what I want. I want to understand people. I want to understand relationships. And what I realize is it always goes back to that intra work, right? It always goes back to me. And we point the finger so many times. We try to understand, why are these barriers, and why is this person treating me like this, and why is this happening? And it's like, well, hold on. You may need to self-reflect and see what you're allowing, why this is like, it heightens your awareness. And so that's why I kind of got started, not kind of got started, but that's what got me started in the business that I do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's not a bad thing to self-reflect, but also it's just you improve yourself, or you at least know how to change some things or do things different. If you're blessed with a second time, another opportunity, or if you're fortunate, right? Because
Absolutely.
through experiences and trials, tribulation, no matter what it is, you either learn, you should learn, or I mean, you get some type of, it's a reaction to everything. So you're like, oh, okay, well, this got me this. I might not want to try that, or if it worked for you, like, okay, I want to stick to this because this is what I'm looking for, is what I want, So that's definitely something that. So during this process, did you go to school here in Northern Cal as well, or SoCal?
So I did both. So I received my undergrad. So I have a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in social. I got it from Cal State San Bernardino. And then I started my master's program down there, but then I ended up transferring up here and finishing and completing my dual master's program. So
congratulations to you. That's a major step. During the school process, I mean, the education is first, right? I mean, well, not first, I would say, but it's in this process, it's key. Where there's some times where it got really difficult for you, especially I know going through that first, undergrad, we push through that, but to consider going, oh, I'm going to get another degree, like that's a whole other ball game. I remember, like, the back of my hand, I was like, aspirations of coaching junior college. So in California, you have to have a master's, and I was like, I had to go get a grad school. I had took 10 years off between school. I was like, nah, I'm cool. And I was like, no, if I want to have it, I got to have my resume, because I'm a professional now as well. So I teach part-time. But I was like, the first day, I was like, I'm about to cry. Like, I had been to school. I don't know. I mean, thankfully I made my undergrad degree. I was like, man, of course my other half was like, nah, go ahead, do it. You got to do it. She's getting, of course, she got her PhD. I was like, I'm not doing that. But I was just like, this is difficult trying to work full time, do certain things. And I was like, whoa. But then the accomplishment again was like, oh, I did that. Like, it was done. But the initial first step was like, I put it off for probably 2-3 years before that anyway. But I was just like, so how was that like for you? Did you go right in? Did you continue, or did you take a little time off?
So I took, like, I think a year break. But my godfather, he's actually a retired superintendent. So I come from a long lineage.
Education in your family.
Yeah, educators like, go do it. I'm like, nah, I barely got it. Took me, I'm not gonna tell you how long it took me to finish my BA, but I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. And he said something so profound. And I know a lot of young people watch your podcast, and a lot of people who are in sports. And I play ball. I still play ball, but I played ball growing up. And so he told me, he said, when you get into your master's program, all you're doing is mastering what you already know. So I want to share that with everyone. Like, all you're doing is mastering what you already know. Yeah, when I took my when I went through my undergrad, I was learning, right? You learn still, but it's a different type of learning. It's like, oh, you're being introduced to these concepts that you've never seen or heard of before. But when you're in your master's program, it's so targeted into the core of what it is that you want to learn, to the point where you're just like that's how it was when I got there. I wasn't scared. I was excited. And then when I started to get into my classes, I'm like, wait, most of this is based on how I perceive things. And that's what I want, right? Like my approach, I live outside the box. I don't think outside the box. I live outside the box. So with this profession, it allows me that flexibility that I need to be able to like totally authentically and genuinely like just be me. And so that's what kind of, that was my feeling.
Nice. Cool. That's what's up. At what point did you go into, as far as, you know, like you said, business for your, or the LLC or business for yourself? Was it always once you got to the field of work, okay, this is my end goal? Or was it like, okay, you know what, I was working here, this is what I want to do? Because as we know, sometimes we work for other people, we work for different things. We're like, you know what, I could actually do this myself. Or when did that plan start coming to form? Or how did it get on paper? I would say, how you start making steps to
so
make
that's a great question. So as a kid, I was an entrepreneur. So I was selling Kool-Aid on the side of the street. I would take my dad's packages of Kool-Aid and like sell it on the side of the street to like the ice cream man and people walking by. So I had like this entrepreneur's like spirit since I was young. And when I was in my undergrad, my master's program, I told myself, I don't want to get another job unless it's in what I'm doing. Right. And so I was on a plane and two people were walking by and they just looked really cool. And I had two seats next to me and I love people. So I'm just like, you all can sit here if you want to. And they're like, oh, thanks. So they sat down and I was studying to sit for like a essential part of my master's program, taking it to like the next level. And so they sat next to me. Long story short, they were looking at what I was studying. They were like, our CEO is looking for someone like you. And I'm like, well, what is it that you do? And so they started to kind of explain educational consulting to me in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so when I heard of equity, I was like, oh, you're talking about owning a home, when you purchase a home, and they were like, no, not that type of equity. And I was like, what? And so they started to explain to me what it entailed. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to travel. I've always wanted to travel for work. I always wanted to be like, here's your hotel room. You got 2 days, you just feel legit. So I'm like, okay, I kind of want that lifestyle to kind of see how it is. And so the CEO flew me out, paid for everything, allowed me to kind of observe and see what they do. And I was like, oh, I love presenting. I love speaking. I love connecting with people. This is kind of like right up my alley. So I did it for about, I think, a year and 9 months. And I was like, all right, God, it's time to go. I was like, it's time for me to go. I think I got everything I need to just go off on my own. And God was like, no, not yet. And I was like, what do you mean not yet? It's going left now. They ain't treat me the way that I'm supposed to, that I want to be. And he's like, no, not yet. You still got some more things you got to learn. And I'm like, all right. So at that time, finally, when he gave me the green light to go, I left. The first year of starting my own business, I just stepped out on faith. I was like, God, I can do this in my sleep. Like, but I wanted to be able to have the room to be innovative to the point where I wanted to, like my bio says, merge psychology with education. I'm just like, I know what's missing because I was still doing therapy, which I'm doing therapy now. But most of my, like when the pandemic hit, my caseload switched to teachers. So I had a lot of teachers coming to me on their breaks, sitting in their cars, crying and talking to me. And I'm like, trying to motivate them to get back in the classroom. And then the other half of my caseload were students. So it was like, wait, hold on. This is a very unique position to be in. I'm hearing the needs from each side. Why don't I just take this information and try to create content under that umbrella of equity, but put my spin of psychology on it? So I have like presentations titled, becoming fearless in the education as an educator. But that becoming fearless, I changed that educator, the end of that presentation to just becoming fearless as whatever position you're in. And so just being able to take what I've learned and put it into my own, it just inspired me to like, just say, just go for it. My first year was kind of rough. Doors were being kind of closed on me. And I'm like, no one really knows me. That's why. But once a door opened and people started to see who I am, what I'm about, and what it is that I do, it's like
start floodgates, then open up.
Yes. That's so dope. Yeah.
That's good. That's what's up. I mean, that's what happens is the consistency. Even with work and what I'm doing now too. It's like everybody keep doing. You got to get past the first year. You get past second year. third year, okay, you get that third year under your belt, your mainstay of like, don't stop. You get to 100 episodes like that. You got to keep going. But it's that, ooh, this didn't work, or I gotta try it again. It's, you got to stick it out. That consistency is
Absolutely.
key. So how refreshing was that to you yourself to actually get it open, get the door open first off, walk through it, kick it down, and now be consistently doing it to where you're feeling comfortable, you like, oh, I made the right decision, and you can see the effect of it's having on people that you serve.
Man, it's seriously, it's mind blowing to me. I've been in so many different positions, um, where I'm able to take the knowledge. So I used to work at a trauma informed care center in Sonoma,
Mm-hmm.
California for years. And so just being able to see the change that I made there. And like you said, with the educators, I realized it's more with the diversity, equity, inclusion world. When you get in there and you start teaching about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you start to realize that there's so much, self-reflective reflection work that needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
where just because I'm an educator, that's just a title, right? That's just a hat that I wear. But there's so many things that I need to go get through myself in order
Mm-hmm.
to be able to give. And my mom, she's 70, she's so wise, and she always says, you can't give what you don't have, right? So as
Mm-hmm.
an educator, I may be having a bad day or whatever the case is. I may be triggered because a student says something or does something,
Mm-hmm.
and I may not even know that I'm projecting, right? But you come to one of my trainings, and not only are you going to understand projection, right? But you're going to understand why you're projecting. You're going to be able to heighten your awareness around your whys. And then I love to provoke thought. So I'm going to give you some theory, some of my theories that are literally going to make you think like, wait, what? Is this true? Is this something that I've been doing that I didn't even know that I was doing? And so being able to see like the aha moments
Mm-hmm.
on, individuals' faces is amazing to me, and not just in the education realm. I know, my business is education and consulting, but I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations and youth. I go all over California, speaking to youth, and I love just seeing their faces. Like I just did, excuse me, I just did I don't call it a training, kind of like a workshop,
Mm-hmm.
down in Oakland, and I had a group of teenagers, our youth, from the ages of like I think they were about 14 to 24, and so I was trying to increase their self confidence, right, their self esteem, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you're a vibe, and I love talking to them because I'm like, I'm a vibe, you're a vibe, right, and then
Being
all
it,
of a sudden, the whole room was like, we a vibe, and the DJ turned the song on, and everybody
yeah,
was like dancing, and I was like, this is what it is,
yeah,
right? So just that change.
that being able to relate and use that terminology, because I
Yes,
mean they like to be able, oh yeah, I know what that word means, or yeah, yeah, okay, yes, we have a bit of an age difference, however, I can relate, or I can say these words, or this is the same music, okay, it's a little different, but I can enjoy your music to a certain extent. And you got to, because really that breaks down the barriers, right? They say, and she looks like me, oh, he looks like me, and we
uh-huh.
can talk the same a little bit, okay, cool, I can
Absolutely.
open up, I can try to change a little bit or take some information in, because if not, as we know, they'll enclose, they'll shut off, or like that. So that's kudos to you, and being that they'll do that. Well, you said that's rewarding. Now, I would say I work with a lot of different educators, different people in schools myself, but I heard one guy mention he was trying to reach like 10,000 smiles or something like that, or like you kind of have that's what you're doing is kind of similar. You're affecting a lot of kids on a regular basis. How much of a what keeps you going motivated? Because every time you see, it's a different group of kids. It's not the same ones. You may have some repeats, but you're in different city, different school district. How do you keep going? Okay, you know what? Different group of kids. Got to get my energy up. Got to get this vibe right. What do you pull it from?
I pull my inspiration from God. I really do. Like I have a personal relationship with the Lord, and then I have two teenagers myself, and so I'll run stuff by them where I'm just like, is this cool? And they're like, nah,
Smart,
man, that's whack, right?
smart.
And yeah, they're just like, nah, that's whack. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna try it anyway. And then when I get to the school, most of the time I'm speaking at their school. So when I go to their school, the kids are like, it was so funny because I used what was it? I have a saying: focus on facts, not feelings,
Mhm.
right? And so, when I left the training, my kids came home and they're like, "Mom, all the kids were walking around talking about focus on facts, not feelings." And I'm like, "That's dope, right? It's a seed that was planted." And they're taking it and they're running with it and they're
Mhm.
processing, trying to figure out what that is. And so, my inspiration is my family, and my inspiration comes from God because He allows me to do what I love doing. Like this is not a job for me. Like I just enjoy
Mhm.
what I do. So that's my inspiration.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it may take some people a short amount of time. It takes people a long amount of time. But if you find your purpose, I tell you, it's nothing like it. Better to do
Absolutely.
that, be comfortable in it. You can get up in it. You can share with others. You can inspire, but also it's like it don't have that burden. I'm sure we've all had jobs or worked certain places,
Absolutely.
and yeah, I mean, I never forget. I had an opportunity to work at DMV a while ago, but I think the CEO was like, man, you guys should work so you can live. You should live to work. I was like, oh, I'm out. And
Yeah.
that's why I went back to school too. I was like, no, I gotta go back to my back. And I was
Wow.
like, he may not know it, but that kicked me right out the door. I was like, okay, I'm out. I gotta go. I gotta go at this point. Went back to grad school after that. So that was
Dope.
different. And I was like, man, live to work. And I was like, yeah. Some people
Yeah.
go to work every day and they
And don't
gotta,
even want to be there.
and they're working on. I'm like, no, okay, you should work to help provide for your family or live yourself
Mhm.
and travel. I was like, okay, man, so that was something I'll never forget. That's always gonna be stamped in what kind of that another shift, another pivot in what I was going through for sure.
That's dope.
The marriage and okay, so we talked about let's talk about the marriage and family part. That's not an easy field of work to be in because one, you're listening, you're providing information, you're narrating, you're doing a few different things. What are some of the just as far as like the practices you may use when encountering people in relationships, right? Because you have to really be really open-minded to information you may know of or not know of. But how do you kind of even prepare yourself for that stuff? Because do you kind of everything like pre-screened? I'm just asking the question for me: is that pre-screened stuff? Do you know what you're getting yourself into before you actually have? I know you have like a pre-screening, but does it kind of catch you off guard sometimes? Stuff too, where you're like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that.
So that's a great question. I've learned when I worked at the trauma center, I would get files before I would get to meet some of the boys. And what I
Mm,
realized is it would shape how I saw them before I would even meet them.
mm,
And so I told myself, okay, stop doing that. Don't
mm,
look at files, right? Build a relationship with them first. And every time I would do that, it'd be total opposite of what the file said.
mm,
So I just took that into, what I do with therapy. So I try not to read the assessments. Yes, there's assessments that have to be done prior to, the client coming to me.
mm,
But most of the time, before I even got here, I prayed. I said, God, don't ever send anybody to me that you have not equipped me to be able to help. So if anybody comes to me, I know that God
mm,
has sent them, and I'm equipped to be able to support them. And so when it comes to relationships, I just think to myself, okay, it's funny because uh, I like working with a wide range of people, and I would say couples. I could do it in person because we have telehealth, right? So I'm strictly online.
mm,
But before the pandemic, when I used to go in and work with couples, I'm like, y'all fighting over who left the toilet seat up, arguing over he left the cabinet open, he didn't wash his dish. Y'all been married for 15 years and you ready to get divorced over that, right? And so it's like to me, it's just simplified my thought process. Like I said, I was married before, so going through
mm,
my own stuff has informed my practices to the point
mm,
where it's like it's not that serious. That's like my whole thing. It's not that serious. Like remind yourself why you even love this person, right? Remind yourself why you love you first, right? And then remind yourself why you chose this person. And then go back to easy, simple steps of date night. You know what I'm saying? Like we get so caught up with life and life
mm.
starts lifing to the point where it's like we become so lost and it's just so simple sometimes.
All
It's
right.
like he didn't close the cabinet, close it when you're in the kitchen. If he didn't put the toilet seat down, no, he doesn't put the toilet seat down, just put it down for him and go to the bathroom. Like it's literally that simple. And what I realized is in doing this work, there's so much underneath it. There's layers to everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's not really the toilet seat, is what he cheated on you 3 years ago and you still holding on against him. And so everything he does irritates you. And so now you're just taking your anger out on him because you
Mm.
didn't discuss it. Now you're here in therapy talking about the toilet seat, but in actuality, it's the woman he cheated with. So
Ooh.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that it can get there. It can get there. So, okay, well, this is still on topic there, but okay, I know we're in the world, right, of social media and TV stuff. If you're able to answer this, how do you feel about all the exposure to people's relationship on the TV screens and networks that to me sometimes I'm like they're for TV shows and ratings. I personally sometimes I don't just like how they portray people relationships to be all the time. I mean, just different people, no matter what race or color, for views, for ratings though, because there's people out there trying to do good work, people trying to save their relationships, or people out there trying to equip and do better. But then you see this and they think we all act like this or do these characters, and I'm
Mhm.
like, no, that's not it. But that's what sells, that's what makes money, and that's what gets
Exactly.
views.
Hmm. So you're asking me what was the
Just
question?
in
How
general, overall, how do you just feel about the exposure of the, like you said, the part where she's irritated, all that, but you don't see, you, I mean, you start to see more now about, oh, I love her, I love him because of this. You're seeing, but of course, right, conflict and fighting stuff that gets to the top of the ratings and numbers.
hmm
But just as a person who's trying to help mend or solve it, or what I mean, take care, get people better, just to see the opposite kind of always be glorified and big screen so much.
so for me, it goes back to why a part of why I do what I do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in educational consulting, when we talk about equity, we talk about implicit biases, right? And with implicit biases underneath that umbrella, we talk about how social media is such an influence on how we perceive things, right? And so when I think about how social media is portraying what you just said, using that example, it's like you really have to decipher for yourself what is real and what is not. And then two, you got algorithms, right? So if I'm sitting up here and I literally have been cheated on, or or I cheated, or whatever the case is, just using that as an example, I'm gonna start looking at videos to validate, right? Subconsciously validate what it is that I just went through. And so all it's doing is feeding whatever it is that I just experienced. And so I always say, whatever you feed is gonna grow. So if you're trying to heal, then feed your healing. And if you're healing, looking at videos and looking at social media that is fueling what you just experienced, and it's countering how you're trying to feel or what you're trying to get to. Now, don't get me wrong, feelings sometimes lie. But what I'm saying is, what your healing process, what does your healing process look like? Right? Really assessing for yourself what that looks like, and then just being able to kind of decipher what it is that is worth watching, right? And I feel sorry for our youth because they have access at their fingertips
so much,
and it's like parents.
And even they don't even filter. Well, they're not going to filter. They're going to want to see what's going on.
Exactly.
But they can't filter out what they should be looking at or what they shouldn't be. Even as adults too, we should go, okay, I'm not even watching that. I mean, I've heard some discussion, people saying, man, don't follow all these things on Instagram. Or if you had to do it before, you might want to just delete them. Not delete, you want to not follow them because they're putting those thoughts in you, or you're seeing, I'm like, yeah, that makes it, because if it's outside of mind, you're not going to think about it as continually if you're seeing it constantly through your feed. And you're like, exactly. And I was like, that makes sense. And the students, as we know, right, in education too, like, it's everything via phone, conversations, or whatever. They have access to so much.
Absolutely.
So I actually worked at the children's home before for a while, for years. Trauma is just, it's no age, no color, or no size. But first off, as a person who is trying to support a student or an adult or a child with trauma, you got to be a special person. You got a certain heart, but just for you, I'm asking you personally, how do you recover yourself from the trauma information you may hear? Because I know some of the stories I've been through with students, or I've heard, or I've seen, or I've been there, and I'm like, man, ooh, that was rough. Or I don't know how I could have did that, but what do you do to heal yourself from that, or prepare and keep going?
That's a good question. So my first thing is I have to really understand what trauma I'm experiencing in that moment, right? Because again, as a someone who is supporting others through their trauma walks, and I want people to know that you are not your trauma, right? Trauma is an experience. It's a part of it. It's something that has happened to you. It's not who you are. And so I have to remind myself that I've experienced some trauma, and there's a chance that I may be triggered when supporting others. So I got to work through my own stuff first, right? Before I can step into, or while I'm working with others. But the way that I ensure that I stay on track with my own healing, or my triggers are not to the point where I'm creating additional harm to others, is I have to, there's certain things that I do for myself. So one thing I do is it's like self-care, right? So I ensure, when I do speak to whoever it is that I'm supporting, that I'm real with them. And it's kind of like what you just said, right? Like I'll tell them straight out, I've never experienced what you experienced before. I have no idea how that feels, but I'm here and I'm going to support you the best that I know how. And, but I need us to be open with each other, right? And that may not be something that that's easy. And I don't name trauma for somebody, right? So if someone is expressing and explaining their experience to me, I'm not going to say, oh, you experienced trauma. I'm not naming that for them. I'm going to walk them through so that they can understand what they're experiencing and they can name it for themselves, and so that we can process from that point on. But I think it's just, for me, just being genuine, being who I am. And so when I do walk away, I know that I gave everything that I could in that moment, which helps me continue my healing process so that I can continue to try to help others heal.
How refreshing is it to help assist somebody in dealing with or overcoming or managing their trauma?
Oh my gosh, it's total validation. It's kind of selfish in a way if you think about it.
Well, you like, I did that. But people who don't do it often or regularly, the work that it takes, you're like, man, it is like accomplishment for yourself too. Yeah, I'm happy for them. But I'm like, oh, I was happy to help assist. I was a mental health therapist, advocate for a year and a half too. And I was like, just trying to guide youth a little bit better, like be a little bit better. And they come back and say, hey, I'm doing better. I was like, oh yeah, give you a high five, but that's really for me too. Like we did that together. but that's what it should be, because it's not for everybody.
It's not, and it's not simple either. It's not simple.
Not.
It's you literally have to be gifted. You literally have to be gifted to just be able to like walk someone through, and for them to trust you.
That's the big
To
thing.
be able to like walk with you. And I always tell people when they come to me, I'm like, I'm not here. People come to me, can you fix me? No, because you're not broken. Let's start there. You're not broken. And secondly, I'm not carrying you because I can barely carry myself, right? So I can walk alongside of you, but you determine how long I'm here, right? So if you start to get to a point where you start to endure challenges where you're like, I can't do this anymore, and then you say, all right, I'm cool, I'm good, I don't need you anymore, that's your call, right? Because I'm not gonna force myself on your journey. And that's what I want people to know too. Like, healing is not a destination, because if we look at it as such, we're going to get irritated and agitated and upset when we don't arrive, right? But if we understand that it's a journey, when we hit those milestones, we celebrate versus become irritated or frustrated.
As my sister would say, that's good. She be in church. That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm gonna quote her right there. That's good. That's what's up. Oh, that's definitely dope. Got to take a second though. If people are interested in your services, information, where can they find you? Definitely give it, got to take time out right now for sure. Do that.
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn, I guess what is it called? Your handle is Coach J. On Instagram, it's Coach J50. And then you can find me on my website, which is www.coach-jae.com. That's like the best way to get in contact with me.
Of course, and I'll make sure I post it when the episode is out. We'll do as well. But so going forward, in your work and your practice, anything that you want to share is coming up? You got anything coming up that people can attend, or where you're gonna be speaking? I'm not sure. Just let's get it out there. I don't know if you're willing to share anything you got working on or coming up that we need to be on the lookout for as well.
Do I have anything? Well, I mean, if you're, regardless if you're an organization, school district, if you're a for-profit, it really doesn't matter who's on the other side of me. I work really well. I'll start like this. So the areas of my expertise is restorative mindset. And just to explain what restorative mindset is, it's just being able to heighten awareness. So these are the 3 pillars of my business: heighten awareness, help others understand their why, and then help others think past their own thinking. So that's the 3 pillars of my business. So if that's something that you all are interested in, regardless of where you work, what you do, you can be a religious affiliation, or you can, like I said, nonprofit, education, doesn't really matter. I do travel. But if you are interested in restorative mindset, diversity, equity, inclusion, SEL, which is social emotional learning, trauma-informed care, we all need it. So that's literally what I do. And so right now I'm working with some school districts, nonprofit organizations, Sierra Health Foundation, my brother's keeper. I love them. But it doesn't really matter who's on the other side. So if that's something that you're interested in, please get a hold of me.
Thank you. So you just gave us your 3 pillars, but at the end of all my shows, as you know, in the basketball world, we call it triple threat: drill, pass, shoot, right? But I ask all my guests at the end of the show, give me your personal triple threat, right? So 3 things that you either hang your hat on or kind of you walk by, have that, whatever it is. Give me your personal triple threat. So somebody listening or watching the show can say, hey, oh, that's Coach J. That's her triple threat.
That's a great question. My first one is don't take it personal. I think that's my first one. So people always say, like, they did this to me, or I felt this way, or they made me feel this way. And it's like, do they know you on a personal level? If they don't, how can you take it personal, right? So I tell myself, don't take it personal. The second one is to just be genuine, be who you are, like your authentic self. Everybody's not going to like you, and that is an indicator that you're actually being who God created you to be, right? Because everyone's not going to like you. And I think my lastly, I think it would be, I know this is corny, I think it's just be kind.
That right? Go a long way, right?
Right. Like, just be kind. Like, you don't gotta be, you don't have to be not nice. Like, be kind, like be kind. It's free. Smile.
Yeah.
If something happened to you in life and you're having a rough time, you don't have to fake it, but just don't project that onto others. Go find support,
Yeah.
Real quick, a great resource to find a therapist is Psychology Today. A lot of people don't know that, but if you go to Psychology Today, type in your information. You can find a therapist. But I always say I have a clothing line. This is not a plug, but it is plug. I have a clothing
plug it. You gotta plug your line. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. Put it out there.
And the clothing line is we need God and therapy, right? We need both. We need, don't get me wrong, God is good all by himself, but we're in need of therapy support, right? And so I think that would be my 3.
That's what's up.
Yeah, just be nice. That's
once again, you guys can find the website www.coach-jae.com for to get in contact with Coach J. And definitely tap in. Resource. It's a lot of schools in Sacramento County. As I know, I'll definitely be tapping in and make some referrals for you, do my part. And I appreciate you taking time out today. We finally made this happen, but I'm sure we're going to get on the education tip a lot more. Got some other things working too, since I'm with the nonprofit now as well. I can definitely funnel some information around, and there's a lot of things going on right now. So I'm just trying to be, I guess I can be that highway for a lot of people. That's why we're doing this too. So I appreciate your time. We'll be in contact soon. I appreciate you again. All right, you heard it here first, Coach J and Coach JT on 94. Both Coach J's. We out.
Bye.